The Lakers are making moves behind the scenes right now that could completely transform this roster before the February 5th trade deadline, and the name that keeps coming up in my conversations with people around the league is someone who would instantly solve our biggest weakness. Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report, your home for the latest breaking news, exclusive updates, and all the insider information surrounding our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. I'm bringing you something today that has me genuinely excited about where this team is headed, and I need you to stay with me through every detail because what I'm about to break down could be the difference between another disappointing playoff exit and a legitimate championship run. Let me set the stage for you. We're sitting here watching a Lakers team that has all the offensive firepower in the world. LeBron James is still doing LeBron things at an age where most players are thinking about retirement. Anthony Davis is playing at an MVP level when healthy, dominating both ends of the floor in ways that remind us why we were so excited when he first arrived in Los Angeles. We've got young talent developing, we've got veteran leadership, we've got one of the most recognizable brands in all of professional sports, but there's one glaring issue that keeps showing up game after game, night after night. And it's the reason why we're not being mentioned in the same breath as the true championship contenders right now. Our perimeter defense is a problem. It's not just a small issue that we can paper over with scheme adjustments or better effort. It's a fundamental roster construction problem that requires a real solution. When you watch us play against elite wing scorers, when you see how opposing teams attack us on the perimeter, when you look at our defensive metrics compared to the teams that are actually winning championships, the gap is undeniable. We need a legitimate two-way wing who can guard the best perimeter players in the league while also contributing on the offensive end. That's not a luxury. That's a necessity if we're serious about competing for a title this season. The Lakers have been actively searching for that missing piece, and according to multiple sources around the league, the focus has intensified over the last few weeks. The trade deadline is approaching fast, and Rob Pelinka knows that this roster needs an upgrade if we're going to make a deep playoff run. We've been connected to several names over the past month, some realistic and some purely speculative, but there's one player who keeps coming up in these discussions, one name that makes too much sense from both a basketball fit perspective and a realistic acquisition standpoint. Before I get to that name, let me walk you through what's been happening around the league, because understanding the broader context is crucial to understanding why this potential move is so significant. The New Orleans Pelicans have been one of the most disappointing teams in the NBA this season. They came into the year with legitimate playoff aspirations, a young core led by Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, and expectations that they could compete in a loaded Western Conference. Instead, they've been plagued by injuries, inconsistent performances, and a general lack of cohesion that has left them well outside the playoff picture. When a team underperforms like that, when their season starts slipping away, and the postseason becomes increasingly unlikely, tough decisions have to be made. Front offices have to evaluate whether they're going to double down on the current roster and hope things turn around, or whether they're going to be proactive and make changes that position them better for the future. For New Orleans, that evaluation period is happening right now, and it's creating opportunities for teams like the Lakers who are looking to add impact players before the deadline. The Pelicans have several valuable pieces that contending teams would love to acquire. Brandon Ingram has been mentioned in trade discussions for months. C.J. McCollum is a proven scorer who could help a lot of teams. But there's one player on that roster who represents the exact profile that championship contenders are desperately searching for, a two-way wing who can defend at an elite level while also contributing offensively. That player is someone who doesn't get the same media attention as the big names, someone who does all the dirty work that doesn't always show up in the box score, someone who has established himself as one of the premier perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. I'm talking about Herb Jones, and the more I look at this potential fit, the more convinced I become that this could be the move that changes everything for the Lakers this season. Jones is exactly what we need, and I'm going to explain in detail why this makes so much sense from every possible angle. Let me start with the defensive side of the equation because that's where his impact would be most immediately felt. Herb Jones is not just a good defender, he's an elite, all-defense caliber perimeter stopper who can guard positions 1 through 4 depending on the matchup. When you watch him play defense, you see someone who understands angles, who has incredible anticipation, who uses his length and athleticism to disrupt passing lanes and contest shots without fouling. This season, Jones is averaging 1.4 steals per game, which ranks him among the league leaders, but steals are just one metric. They don't tell the full story of his defensive impact. When you look at advanced defensive statistics, when you see how opposing players shoot when he's the primary defender, when you watch how he navigates screens and fights through contact to stay attached to his man, you understand why coaches around the league consider him one of the most valuable defensive players in basketball. He can guard Luka Doncic one night and then switch onto Nikola Jokic in the post the next night. That versatility is incredibly rare and incredibly valuable in today's NBA. For the Lakers specifically, adding Jones would immediately transform our perimeter defense. Imagine having someone who can take on the toughest defensive assignment every single night, someone who allows Anthony Davis to roam more freely as a help defender instead of having to constantly rotate to cover for our weak perimeter defense, someone who gives LeBron the ability to conserve energy on the defensive end because he's not being asked to guard the opponent's best scorer at age 39. That's what Herb Jones would bring to this team, and the ripple effects would extend far beyond just his individual matchup. But here's the thing that makes Jones even more valuable than your typical defensive specialist. He's not a liability on offense. He's not someone you have to hide in the corner and hope he doesn't get exposed. Jones is averaging 11.7 points per game this season on 48% shooting from the field and 37% from three-point range. Those are solid, efficient numbers that show he can contribute as a spot-up shooter, as a cutter, as someone who makes smart decisions with the basketball. He's not going to be your primary offensive option, but he's also not someone that opposing defenses can completely ignore. In the Lakers system, Jones would fit seamlessly. He'd get open looks from three because of the attention that LeBron and AD command. He'd have opportunities to cut to the basket and finish in transition because of how we play. He'd be asked to do what he does best, play elite defense, make smart offensive decisions, and contribute within the flow of the game without needing plays called for him. That's the perfect role player profile for a championship contender, someone who excels at his specific role without needing to be featured or catered to offensively. Now let's talk about the realistic path to actually acquiring Herb Jones, because this isn't just wishful thinking or fan speculation. The Pelicans are in a tough spot right now. They're 13-15 on the season, sitting in 11th place in the Western Conference, and their chances of making the playoffs are diminishing with every loss. Zion Williamson has dealt with injuries again. Brandon Ingram's future with the team remains uncertain, and there's a growing sense that New Orleans might need to make some difficult decisions about the direction of their franchise. Jones is 26 years old. He's under contract through the 2025-26 season with a team option for 2026-27, and he represents significant trade value for the Pelicans if they decide to make changes. He's the type of player that every contending team wants, which means New Orleans could get a solid return for him if they make him available. And here's the key point. The Lakers have assets that could interest the Pelicans in a potential deal. We have young players who could fit their timeline. We have future draft picks that could help them rebuild. We have the flexibility to structure a deal that makes sense for both sides. The framework of a potential trade would likely involve some combination of our young talent, possibly a player like Max Christie or Jalen Hood-Schifino, who could develop into rotation pieces for New Orleans, along with draft compensation that gives the Pelicans future assets to work with. It wouldn't require us to gut our roster or trade away our core pieces. It would be a strategic move that improves our championship odds this season, while also maintaining the foundation we've built. That's the type of deal that Rob Pelinka has shown he's willing to make, moves that are calculated and purposeful rather than desperate. There's also the broader context of how the Pelicans might be thinking about their roster construction. If they're concerned about Zion's long-term health, if they're worried about losing Brandon Ingram in free agency without getting anything in return, if they're looking at their current trajectory and realizing that this core might not be good enough to compete in the West, then moving a player like Herb Jones before the deadline makes strategic sense. They could get value for him now, rather than holding on to him and potentially seeing his trade value diminish if they continue to struggle. For the Lakers, the urgency is obvious. LeBron James is not getting any younger. We have a limited window to maximize this championship opportunity, with him still playing at an elite level. Anthony Davis is in his prime right now, playing some of the best basketball of his career, and we need to surround him with the right pieces to take advantage of this moment. Adding Herb Jones isn't just about this season. Although it would immediately improve our chances this year, it's also about positioning ourselves for sustained success over the next few seasons as we navigate the transition period that's inevitably coming. Think about what our starting lineup would look like with Herb Jones in it. You'd have D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves running the point, Herb Jones locking down the opponent's best wing, LeBron operating as a point forward, Anthony Davis dominating in the paint, and suddenly you have a lineup that can compete defensively with anyone in the league. You'd have the offensive firepower to score with the best teams, and you'd have the defensive capability to get stops when you need them most. That's the formula for championship basketball, and that's what adding Herb Jones would give us. The defensive versatility alone would be transformative. Right now, when we play teams like Denver or Boston or Milwaukee, we struggle to contain their best perimeter players. Jamal Murray gets going, and we don't have anyone who can consistently slow him down. Jason Tatum picks us apart because we're switching everything and he's finding mismatches. Damian Lillard is getting clean looks because we can't fight through screens effectively. All of those problems get significantly better with Herb Jones on the roster. He's the type of defender who can genuinely disrupt elite scorers, who can make them work for every point, who can turn a comfortable offensive possession into a difficult one. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough when discussing defensive acquisitions: the psychological impact of having an elite defender on your team. When your teammates know that you have someone who can lock down the opponent's best player, it changes the entire defensive mindset of the group. Role players play with more confidence because they're not being asked to do things beyond their capability. Stars can take more risks on the defensive end because they trust that someone has their back. The entire defensive scheme becomes more aggressive and more effective because you have that anchor piece who can be relied upon in the toughest matchups. I've been covering this team for years. I've watched countless games. I've analyzed hundreds of possessions, and I can tell you with complete confidence that adding Herb Jones would be one of the most impactful moves we could make before the deadline. It's not the flashiest name. It's not going to generate the same headlines as trading for a superstar. But it's the type of smart, strategic acquisition that championship teams make when they identify a specific need and go out and fill it with the right player. The timeline for this potentially happening is tight. The trade deadline is February 5th, which means we're looking at roughly 6 weeks for negotiations to take place, for both sides to evaluate their options, for a deal to potentially come together. The Lakers have been proactive in their approach to roster building this season, and I expect that to continue as we get closer to the deadline. Rob Pelinka understands the urgency of the situation. He knows that this window with LeBron is closing. He knows that we need to maximize every opportunity we have to compete for championships. Adding Herb Jones would be a clear signal that we're serious about winning now. There are obviously other options out there. We've been connected to players from various teams around the league, but when you look at the combination of fit, availability, and realistic acquisition cost, Herb Jones stands out as the most logical target. He checks every box that we're looking for. He's an elite defender. He's a capable offensive contributor. He's the right age to fit our competitive timeline. He's under contract beyond this season, so it's not just a rental. He would make us immediately better while also providing value for the future. That's the profile of player you target when you're trying to build a championship roster. So here's what I want to know from all of you watching right now. Do you think Herb Jones is the right target for the Lakers? Would you be excited about this potential acquisition? What would you be willing to give up to make this deal happen? Are there other players you'd prefer we target instead? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below because this is the kind of decision that could define our entire season, and I value your perspective as passionate Lakers fans who care deeply about where this team is headed. If you want to stay updated on every development as we approach the trade deadline, if you want detailed analysis of every potential move the Lakers might make, if you want insider information, and exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else, make sure you subscribe to Lakers News Fan Report and hit that notification bell. We're here every single day bringing you the content you need to stay informed and connected to your Los Angeles Lakers. Drop a like on this video if you found this analysis valuable, share it with your fellow Lakers fans, and let's keep this conversation going down in the comments. The next few weeks are going to be crucial for our championship aspirations, and I'll be here covering every single development. Until next time, let's go. Lakers!